Hello and welcome back to the channel. This is Slotcard 2021. My name is Paul and I hope you're having a great day. Today's episode is video games versus kind of hobbies, um, physical hobbies. Including slot cars, it could be tabletop gaming, it could be um, sewing, it could be pottery, it could be modeling, it could be um, sport, it could be um, painting, it could be anything that's physical. So, what is the benefit of having a physical hobby over like a virtual hobby? Because this is kind of been on my mind a bit because growing up um, as a child, um, I've been lucky enough to see the evolution of video games from fairly basic level all the way up to where we are today. And um, I know in terms of research, when I've done the mag versus non-mag series, I was kind of looking at all the stats and um, all the figures behind slot cars back in the 60s and what that was equivalent to. And slot cars back then were as big as video games are today. So, yeah. So I kind of flipped it around, and obviously, video games are bigger than slot cars. Um, so, yeah, I just wanted to um, talk about kind of the appeal of both and do I think one is better than the other, and kind of my experiences with it. Yeah, I think these things are good to run over, and it makes you kind of think as well. Kind of maybe if you're spending a bit too much time virtually, so that could be on social media. Um, it could be playing video games, um, things like that. Would your time be more productive doing something else? And what are the benefits behind that? Mental health, physical health, things like that. Because we've really seen a rise in competitive gaming, video gaming. You can do degrees now in video gaming, and it's big money, obviously. Um, so yeah, I just wanted to kind of debate that with myself because I don't have anyone else to debate it with. I should really either get someone else on or go on and do a podcast with someone else, really, shouldn't I? But at the moment, it's just kind of me and my thoughts, which is fine. Excuse me. Yeah. So let's start with video games. So growing up, um, I the first kind of video games that I have experience of kind of playing with would have been um, Nintendo Entertainment System, like the NES. Um, that's late 80s, early 90s, I believe. Um, then you've got obviously the Super Nintendo, which was kind of like that is what I played with quite heavily. I didn't have Super Nintendo. Like back then, um, video games weren't really mainstream. Well, they kind of were, but weren't. So obviously Mario was big. But in terms of people having video games consoles in their house, it just wasn't the same as what it is today. Like most people have a video games console in their house. Maybe the children have got it, maybe it's shared between parents and children, or maybe the parents have their own system, or they might even have multiple systems. Um, if you think in terms of, like, say, for example, well, I've got a Switch, um, and I've got an Xbox um, Series S. So yeah, I've got two systems, and predominantly I'm not the one that plays on them. It's my son. So he loves, and he's actually quite good at the games, and he's surpassed me now. So if I play Mario Kart, for example, he's whooping my ass. He's absolutely destroying me, and I get frustrated. That frustrates the hell out of me. But it's good. So we do play a bit. I don't really play very much anymore. I did get into quite competitive Rocket League, and for a number of years, I was part of a Rocket League team. Um, we would compete, and we weren't like we were competitive, but not super competitive, and definitely weren't at the level of like pro gamer level, nowhere near. So, but it was more about just for fun, and um, we had our own little kind of team, which was pretty cool, and we chatted to each other on WhatsApp and on the phone, and yeah, it was good. Um, But I just feel like games don't necessarily, obviously they give you a reward, so you might complete a level, you complete a game, but there's nothing really in like I enjoy the experience of the game, and I look back with good memories, mainly playing with other people, playing games. That's kind of obviously you look back on memories and associate those particular games with good times and having fun. Um, yeah, I think growing up, um, when video games were progressing so fastly, and obviously um, when the PlayStation 1 came out, um, my first console was a Mega Drive, um, Sega Mega Drive. Great console, some amazing games on that. Um, and yeah, um, some good happy memories of Streets of Rage, um, and playing that with my best friend. And um, you couldn't really save the levels, so you just had to play the whole game through for like 7 hours, um, which was, yeah, hard but fun. So many hours kind of doing that. I think they did actually. I think some of the games had like a chip in where you could actually save, if I remember rightly. Maybe. I don't know. Comment down below if that's right. But it's such a long time ago. Um, PS1. Um, had a PS1. Shared it with my sisters, and yeah, PS1 was obviously massive. Um, and then I had a GameCube, um, and for me it was um, what game? Need for Speed Underground. That game was amazing. I had a Peugeot 106 that I like tuned up and put loads of parts on, and that was just so much fun to drive around. So I look back on that with fond memories. Um, yeah, that was good. Um, and then I had a Wii. Um, I had a Wii U. I had what else did I have? Xbox. After the PlayStation 1, I didn't have another PlayStation console. I really liked Xbox. Gears of War. What a great series that is. Um, some really good fond memories, but that's more kind of like we all stayed up playing Gears of War, eating pizza, drinking beer. That came out, I think, in 2007. Um, and that was kind of like a real kind of like we all had jobs then. We all were kind of grown up, but um, we were still very much in the we didn't have kids. We partied and just had a great time. And Gears of War was something that we actually came together and played a lot. Um, and poker as well. So like a Friday night might consist of poker and Gears of War, which that's a pretty good night in my opinion. Um, and I just loved the single player um, game. And I just thought it's just such a fantastic, iconic series. Um, and obviously, like all the character models and the environments were really cool. So yeah, um, that's kind of something that I really, really like and play through. Um, Obviously, I grew up with, well, I say I grew up with, I was like mid teenage years to like maybe 18 or a few years off that when the first GTA came out. And that was the 2D top down. So I played a lot of that. Um, GTA 3, um, played a lot of that. Didn't really play San Andreas, but played GTA 4. Um, the reason why I completed GTA 4 was because I worked kind of part time for a bit because I didn't have a full time contract, and I spent more like a whole summer every day. I would get up and play GTA 3. No, sorry, GTA 4, and yeah, that was um, really, really good. I enjoyed it, but I kind of like locked myself away and just played that. And I think that's the danger with video games. It can be quite isolating. Um, and that's what I think is not a great kind of, it's not good to do that because it can lead to mental health problems. It's not healthy. You're not getting up and moving. Um, so I look at that as quite a negative thing, really. Um, but yeah, I mean, I enjoy playing video games, but I kind of feel now that um, some of the more traditional pastimes, hobbies have been forgotten. And I try and get the kids off the screen as much as possible. We actually do things together, and I try and get them to have kind of like hobbies that are not virtual. And I think that's a really, really good point because I tend to notice that my son's behavior gets worse when he's playing video games a lot. Whereas if he's doing more more kind of like hobbies that stimulate him a little bit more and like creative and things like that, then his behavior improves, which is really interesting. So yeah, that's just kind of like my experience. But I think it's great having this virtual world that you can get lost in, but you don't have anything to show. Um, and you're not talking to real people maybe in the same way as you would be when we do like live chats, slot car live chats. We are actually speaking more and actually kind of like having a genuine interest in like day-to-day stuff other than slot cars and like how you're getting on, and people are kind of like opening up, and it's like it's interesting, and people are always kind of opening up a bit more, and you don't really get that with video games. Like it is about the video games, and everything's, you're not playing a video game and having a deep chat about, issues that you faced and how you've overcome them. Whereas I kind of feel like you can have those conversations with slot cars, and that can be if you meet up with other people and go racing, um, then, like for example, when I go club racing, you chat to people and it's a lot of fun, and you're actually engaging with people. It's exercise because you're having to walk around, you're picking cars up, um, you're actually using your hands. So for like older racers, it's really good to kind of um, keep their reaction times up, and you're having to think and um, use your body, and you stood up, so you're using your core and things like that. So there's so many good things about the hobby in terms of it keeps you active, it keeps your mind engaged, switched on, all these positive things that you wouldn't necessarily get from video games. And I guess it's about balance, isn't it? So I enjoy playing video games, but I also realize how they can be detrimental to my health and detrimental to um, mm, um, speaking to actual people. But younger people don't necessarily always think like that. Um, and yeah, I think there isn't, like, more people should pick up physical hobbies um, alongside um, video games, because it just creates community and you're actually engaging with actual people, whether that is going like to a Lego club and building Lego, because those kind of exist. Um, whether you're like as a child you're going to like scouts or some kind of group, and you're actually having kind of like, it's kind of like a hobby, isn't it? Or you're playing sport or things like that. Not to say that you can't have a community digitally, but um, I think slot cars combine physical, digital, social media, but in a really positive way. Um, and that's what's kind of unique about it, is you can do so many different things within the hobby, um, that it's kind of like a really well-rounded thing to be involved with, um, because you can go out and race, you can go on and jump on a live stream, you can post things on social media, you can paint things, which is therapeutic and mindful and helps you relax. So it's good for your mental health, good for your blood pressure, things like that. And it helps you switch off. Whereas video games kind of like pump you up, don't they? It's like fight or flight response. So it's like adrenaline. Yeah, it's kind of, I guess, more fun, kind of less intense games um, could relax you, or maybe it is relaxing, but GTA, I can't imagine gunning people down. Is that, I don't know. Maybe people find that relaxing. I don't know, but yeah. Um, Yeah, I think that's what's really kind of like missing is teenagers, children having actual hobbies these days. Um, Obviously, like a lot of people do. I suppose dance is a good one where people might do TikTok or they might do YouTube, but they're also attending dance classes and they've got like the community going there. So that's potentially a more positive thing. Tabletop gaming, um, obviously having to, that's quite a good one as well. That kind of fits alongside slot cars where you're painting, you're building, you're maybe playing against other people, so you're having to leave your house, um, go and mix with other people, and you've got your social media, you've got your live streams, you've got so that's probably quite a good one as well. Um, it's not to say that um, you can't enjoy digital hobbies. It's just I think there's something in the physical um, hobby that you like the benefits outweigh like a physical hobby, the benefits outweigh a virtual hobby in terms of um, potentially like exercise, um, relaxation, or community, or things like that. I know that you can have like a community. Obviously, you do live streams, gaming live streams, stuff like that, but it's not quite the same, I don't think. Um, And also, the other thing with physical hobbies is you've got something to show. So maybe you like doing wood turning or something like that, or carpentry, um, and you can build something that is going to be with you for years. You can look back on that and hold it and touch it. With a video game, if you complete a video game, you're probably not going to rerun through that whole video game. You don't really have anything to show for it apart from the memories of kind of like the process. But there's nothing physical to show. Whereas, for example, slot cars, you could have put hours into building a car, tuning a car up, painting a car, and that was the result. So you've got the memories of building that, the struggle maybe, um, all the designs you had to do, and you could put that slot car away and maybe your grandchildren find it and they say, "Oh, what's this?" And then you kind of say, "Well, this is something I built 20 years ago. Shall we put it on the track or let's get it back on the track?" You can have a go with it. You can't do that with a video game. I mean, you might have a video game system, and like say grandkids could find it and say, "Oh, what's this?" And you're like, "Oh, this is my video game system from like 20 years ago." But the way things are going now, it's all digital. You don't have the physical games, so you can't really plug it in and expect it to work. It'll be obsolete by then. It won't work unless you've got the physical games stored on it. But then with electronics, over time, they degrade. So whereas people pick up a slot car from the 60s, um, and with a little bit of cleaning and a bit of maintenance, you've got that back on the track. And I think that's something, or for example, scenery, something physical that you can say, yeah, I built this 20 years ago, and you can pass that on to your children or their children, and it can stay within families. So I just think there's something there in terms of a physical. Same with paintings. So you could paint something and you could have that on your wall. and you've still got that physically to touch, to look at. That's something you could potentially keep forever, and pass down generation or pass through generations. So yeah, I think the digital world can be kind of like built up to be like everything, but actually, when you strip it back, it's almost kind of nothing, if you know what I mean. Um, there's nothing to really show for it. Um, which, yeah, it's good to think about this, because if you're not thinking about it, you can't really evaluate. Um, you might play a lot of video games and you think, oh, actually, yeah, like what have I got to show for it? Or, um, you know, should I be playing this? Should I be playing video games this much? And maybe you might think that actually, oh, actually, yeah, I might. What else do I like doing? Um, what other hobbies could I pick up that actually could improve my mental health? Could um, engage, like allow me to engage with like a new group of people, allow me to um, improve your physical health as well. So it might be like Raoul the other day posted about um, archery. I didn't know that he did that, and that's something physical. Um, it's something that takes um, accuracy and skill, and is fun, and is like a physical thing. You can touch it, you can feel it, you can see it, you can build that level of skill. Um, yeah, I think that's important, and it's important to kind of evaluate. If all you do is play at home by yourself and play video games, then maybe you should pick up something alongside that. Um, and I would recommend slot cars, obviously. um, but yeah, I think slot cars, people these days, especially adults, think of it as a toy. But when you obviously, um, we all know as enthusiasts that it isn't a toy. Well, it is a toy, but it can be a lot more than that. So I think the mainstream, like in terms of where slot cars are going, because I did put that in the comments on a video that it was Sunday Sunday session. Raoul's his painting session that he does is live, and I kind of put, where do you see the hobby in 3 years' time? And he was like, well, I don't think the best place. I'm best placed to kind of like comment on that. I was like, okay, fair enough, fair enough. Um, but yeah, I think that the thing that is going to grow the hobby is the mainstream, because we all are in kind of like enthusiast kind of like circle. So we're like, oh yeah, all we do is eat, sleep, slot cars. But the general person, if they don't hear about it, if it's not in the mainstream, then it's not really growing. It needs to be in the mainstream to grow. Um, and I think Scale Electric, Magnetic Racing probably do the most. I've been thinking about this in terms of like pushing it out to the wider public and getting more people involved. They do probably, out of all the companies, they probably do the best in terms of bringing it to the masses. through events like Goodwood, Revival, or the corporate events that they do. How many people, when they do a corporate event, are going to use the product, um, have a look at the scenery and say, wow, I wouldn't mind having a layout in my home. So I think they're probably the ones that are, driving the hobby more than anyone. Um, Obviously, people doing YouTube is going to help push it out further to a wider audience, especially a younger audience. There's a lot of younger people watch a lot of YouTube. So, if they come across a video, um, you might get interested in uh, that hobby. So, yeah, I think it is a very positive hobby. Um, and I think video games are overrated, in my opinion, in terms of the benefit overall. Not to say, I love video games. I've grown up with video games, and I've got favorite kind of like franchises and things like that. But I just kind of sometimes think that people lean too much on that, and it's kind of like pushed a bit like in the UK, obviously, football or soccer, if you're in the States, it's kind of like, you know, when you're at school, it's like, oh, football, football, football. And it's like, yeah, okay. But there's loads of other things that you can get involved in, but they're just kind of like the typical, oh yeah, everyone likes this, kind of attitude. And I think video games kind of fall on that. It's like it's reached such a, a point now where video games are part of kind of like society in terms of um, films, and I know that that goes way back, obviously. Um, for example, like Resident Evil. I think that's a great franchise, video game and film. And I'm not saying this is a bad kind of thing. The Last of Us. Um, yeah, I think I'm not saying that it's bad, but they've kind of reached the point where slot cars were back in the 60s. They're kind of now the equivalent of what slot cars slot cars were back then. Um, but is that do we want to be pushing that kind of digital world and not getting people engaged in actual hobbies? Because I think it's the actual hobbies that actually are going to mean more to people um, than video games. But it's interesting. It's an interesting debate. Um, it would be good to maybe speak to someone that is like a competitive gamer, get their viewpoint on it. Um, but I just feel that video games overall offer far less than a physical hobby. And I want people to just think about that. And if you do play a lot of video games, maybe you'll reevaluate kind of like how much time you spend playing them. I think it applies to family time as well. Like I think everyone can benefit from being on the phone less and actually talking and spending time. And that's something that I think it's easy to not prioritize that, but you need a good balance, and that applies to slot cars as well. So, I think that I will be definitely thinking about that more in the future, and maybe if I'm doing a bit too much, just ease back off and maybe spend a bit more family time. Right, I'm going to wrap it up for that one. I've rambled on, but if anyone is still listening, well done for making it through. And yeah, I'm sure that people will have found this interesting. And maybe if anyone wants to debate, I'm happy to team up. We can do another episode on it. Okay, until next time, guys. Take care.